Hi there, I'm Taylor Jackson, and I have photographed over 1,000 weddings all around the world. And that means a lot of the years I was shooting between 60 and 70 weddings, which is a lot of weddings. Today we were shooting on the Fuji X100VI as a wedding photography camera. It's an incredible camera. We've been using it for months now. I love it for photos, I love it for video, but does it actually perform in a wedding environment? We'll find out now in a real behind-the-scenes wedding day. So first, the bad with this camera. It is a fixed lens. It is 35mm. This is a attachment you can get. The lens hood, so if you're banging it off stuff, you're not actually scratching the lens. You can also get mist filters or a polarizer filter, which also makes it weather sealed, which is kind of nice. But it is a fixed lens, so you're at 35 f2 as a minimum aperture, no matter what.
That's wrong. You can get a wide angle adapter or a telephoto adapter as well.
The battery life is not great, and I actually carry a battery charger with me, a plug-in cell phone charger, so I can keep this charged all day. But the other solution would just be to bring a bunch of batteries, kind of like you were shooting Fuji in 2014, because I think it's the same battery that was out then. Next up, maybe not the most usable autofocus in large groups of people. As you'll see in the screen recordings of the ceremony, it was a bit of a challenge. Even with smaller focus areas enabled, it just tracks everything, so you have to take it off eye and face detect and put it just onto regular autofocus mode, which isn't ideal. It's not the most user-friendly. But that all said, you can make it work. Next up, it's near impossible to get right now. This is the limited edition, so it's even more impossible to get this one. You don't need the limited edition, it just comes with some extra badging on it, as well as a fancy strap that's not this strap. A lens cap that I don't want to use because I'm going to lose it, and also a nice little shutter button. But there is no change in functionality or the materials. I was really hoping it would be maybe a brass or something, but there's no change. It just costs more money because it's a limited edition. There's only a few of them. Now the good, small form factor, so you can be inches away from people and taking candid photos and they don't really care or notice. Also, I guess maybe this should have come first. You get beautiful images. The Fujifilm film simulations and JPEGs are incredible. While there is only one card slot in this camera, you can actually set it up so that it auto transfers to your phone, so you have a second device backup kind of immediately as you're taking pictures, which is pretty darn cool. It's also kind of a fashion accessory, and people will ask you questions about it. They'll think it's cool. Retro cameras are great. They'll ask if it's film, and you just show them the screen and they'll be like, oh, so cool though. And not only are we doing photography today, but we are also doing some hybrid photo video coverage. I'm actually doing vertical videos, so I'm doing an Instagram edit rather than a regular hybrid. And I'll talk about the successes and the struggles of that. The success is that I absolutely love this camera. It is a very underrated video camera. For the trip that we did to Japan in March, I actually used it as a main video camera. I didn't bring any of my, I usually use a Sony A7RV or the Sony A9 Mark III that I have. And I did not use any of that. I just used this, and it was awesome. And also you get 40 megapixel files from this. They're big, so you can crop around if you want. I know a lot of us are looking for excuses and justifications to buy this camera, and as a pro photographer, it is still a write-off because it's a piece of equipment, it's camera gear, but does it actually wedding?
If she's asking, we're just outside in the garden. Good, yeah.
With her dress also.
With the dress.
That looks nice.
I know, it's really nice.
Just a quick note here on Fujifilm simulations. Well, they are going to be amazing. So this is a few of the samples of the day. These are straight out of camera JPEGs. When it comes to actually doing a full wedding day, you're going to find yourself in mixed lighting environments. If I was out traveling and I was able to set my white balance and get all of my correct exposures all of the time, I would be very, very happy to just use the JPEGs from the Fujifilm film simulations you're seeing on the screen. However, when you're at a wedding day, there's a lot of mixed lighting environments, and sometimes things happen and you're just not able to correct your exposure fast enough. So you will be working from the RAW file. If you do have Capture One, you can still use the Fujifilm film simulation. You can make edits on top of it and export, and it's going to use the color palette and everything from that film sim. But if you're using Lightroom, you kind of will probably be using your own preset, or maybe you're going to be using a system like Imagen to automatically edit everything for you. There is a link in the description below if you want 1500 free edits. They're basically a pattern recognition system that will match how you edited an image in the past, and it'll match it to the future, and it'll fine tune. It allows me to actually edit a full wedding in under an hour, which is amazing. That's final images. So go check them out. If you use the link in the description, you get 1500 free edits, whereas if you just go to their regular website, you only get 1000 free edits. So get those 500 bonus edits by signing up. But yeah, the images you're going to be seeing are sadly not the straight film sims. They're actually my preset. So if you are a member, you have access to those presets and you're able to use them. All right, now back to the actual taking of the wedding pictures. Here we have a dress. This is the specific preset I'm using, and this is my TJM 2024 preset, which is a preset I made for a wedding we did in California, and I like the color palette a lot, and I feel like it's the main one I'm going to be using for this year. My editing style, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but it does change in terms of what preset I use based on the wedding venue. So if I'm somewhere that's a little bit darker and a little bit moodier, or maybe just significantly more incandescent lights, I'm going to use a different preset than I would if it's a very light and airy style venue. That's one of the reasons why I'm always a little bit thrown off when couples ask the knot tells them like 10 questions to ask your wedding photographer, and one of them is always like, what is your style? And it's like, well, you saw the pictures and you inquired based on that, so I don't understand why you're asking the question. And it really does change based on the day, and that's what I do. Again, you don't gotta do everything I do. That's just how where I've found myself, I guess, over these past bunch of years. This is Lindsay, by the way. This is her wedding. I wouldn't really experiment using the X100VI is not an experimental camera, so it's not like I'm doing a disservice, but I am the bonus photographer today. I'm not a hired second, so I am able to experiment a little bit more and use maybe a camera that I wouldn't usually use to see if it actually works and fits into the workflow, and then it becomes a real camera that I use in the future. It's the Atomos Ninja Star. I wish that I pronounced that weird. This is a product that I wish that they would bring back. It's just a black box recorder. You'll notice that it's a bit of a struggle for autofocus face detect, that it wants to select other faces. So I should have tightened the box up a little bit, but in my experience so far, please correct me if I'm doing this wrong, it seems like the face and eye detect, even if you have that box set up, it will maybe prioritize faces in the center of the screen, but it definitely just selects any face that's available in the entire frame, which is a bit of a bummer. So I'm hoping I'm doing it wrong. I asked John Branch and Omar, but I'm recording this voiceover at 6:30 in the morning and I don't think they're up yet. I will update when they wake up. And it is really, really nice. So shooting a film simulation and just seeing how nice it looks in your viewfinder, I feel like it gives you more motivation and excitement in the day. I'm sure that maybe this wears off after a certain time, but I've been using the X100 series since it came out in 2012 maybe, and it still hasn't worn off for me. I'm still excited when I see these images in comparison to other camera brands. I am interested now that Panasonic is including LUTs that you can shoot in photography as well. I'm curious if that will transfer over to other systems. But for now, Fuji, I think, wins at the film simulation game. That was Omar getting back to me. Let's read the tweet live here. It's not a tweet, it's a text. And yeah, so I think that I am correct the way that I've been using this. He says there is a workaround that Pal2 Tech gave him, that it's basically you set a custom button to do a single point autofocus with no face detect. So you're able to just select only the face, but you're not using face and eye for that. And that's my crowdsourced early morning information. Thank you, Omar Gonzalez. Go check out his channel. He does a lot of Fuji stuff. So here we are, trying to do that workaround in real life and just it not making it. Also, when it comes to doing video, the process for hybrid is also a little bit clunky. It's also slow. So even if you have a fast card in, it's pretty slow to switch between photo and video if you are taking a lot of raw files. You have to go into the drive/delete button and go down, but the video functionality won't be enabled until the card has written all of the files that are in the buffer. And at that point you can do video, but it kind of, it makes it challenging because if you do just switch without looking, you end up in multi-exposure mode or something and it locks your entire camera up pretty much. And I did this once throughout the day and I was a little bit bummed out. So yeah, this is just me trying to figure out how to make Fuji autofocus not just select everybody in the scene and to just select an individual person. I will say though, check out that battery life. So far, I have not plugged my camera into a charger and I've been doing okay. When it comes to travel photography, I can pretty much get by an entire day on a battery if I'm doing some photo and some video. Obviously, if you're doing all day coverage of something, it's gonna be different. But in my experience for photo, video, just kind of general B-roll and taking some pictures, one battery's actually been okay. So at this point, would I recommend this as a main camera for weddings? I don't think so, but we haven't yet made it to the part where I find Fujifilm really displays its strengths, and that is coming up soon, after the first kiss. And I should also mention that I do turn off my camera quite often. So this goes for any camera, that when it's not in use, I'm usually turning it off and on. We have discovered some issues with the Canon R6 Mark II, where if you're turning it off and on and you boot it up really fast and start taking pictures, it does tend to lock up a little bit more. But any other brand, including the X100VI, I have had no problems. So I still haven't figured out that I can just go to single point and just ignore face and eye detect. It just seems a little backwards and confusing to me. Again, if you're out traveling, you're doing photos of a couple maybe, and it's just an engagement session, probably never going to be an issue, but for a bunch of people in the scene, it is a little bit challenging if you do want to get more creative with your compositions and also rely on the face and eye detect. And even though it's a high megapixel camera, I'm not going to be able to switch to video right now if I took all those photos, but it does clear the buffer pretty quickly and it's not really a problem. And I think in terms of lockups, I've only locked this camera up maybe one time, and it was on this wedding. And then I also locked it up with user error trying to switch to video and ending up in that multi-exposure mode. When it comes to mixed lighting, so there's obviously some incandescence overhead, and then some stained glass or something coming in through the windows, and then also natural daylight towards where they're walking right now. And I find that the Fuji files clean that up pretty well, especially the film sims. When you're looking at it, it just looks really natural. So shout out to Fuji for doing that, because I don't know, it makes our lives as wedding photographers easier. In a situation like this where it's just overcast and it's pretty easy for photography, it's never a problem. But when you do get into those more challenging environments, it's very nice to be able to create a more professional image in a faster way. I would say that this is the strength of the Fuji camera, maybe. I don't know. For me it is. That I can just be walking around cocktail hour, I can rely on face and eye detect, and I can frame some shots up from a close distance and get nice photos. Skin tones, everything looking good. And here's a little, that's straight out of camera, and that's my edit there. So here it is. So you can see both of them. Now I see it side by side, maybe my edit's too much. At least in that scene. It looked a little, I don't know. I prefer the straight out of camera in that case. But again, it's really challenging to just go by the JPEGs only because of the number of scenes you're gonna find yourself in and exposure changes on the day. I also find, so I shoot everything on full manual settings on this camera because I find that specifically the ISO selections, if you're an auto ISO, are sometimes a bit of a mystery. I'm hoping that this could be a firmware thing in the future, but yeah, it usually doesn't select how I would set up my ISO in a given scene, so I lock all of my settings so that I'm getting exactly what I want. When it comes to the screen, you can actually see it outside, which is nice. I don't really use the viewfinder a whole lot, or the rangefinder. While it is kind of that value add feature that it's really cool to have, I typically don't find myself using it at all on a wedding day anymore. This is personal preference. It started over 2020 when I was wearing a mask to all my weddings and it was fogging up my viewfinder. And I started relying on the screen a lot more, and I found that that is a more comfortable way for me to operate. And even though it looks a little silly in some cases, I find myself just creating better work like that overall.
I'm recharging my battery because I only have one battery for this, which is a mistake. So I just run it like this all day. This is also an aftermarket lens hood. I basically use it in case I bump it into stuff like this tree and I don't scratch the lens. Also, this strap is fused on right there, so that doesn't move anymore. So I got to figure out how to get that off. Also, a lot of people get this camera for the physical dials, and I set mine all to C, and I set my ISO to manual as well. And I pretty much leave this at F2 all the time on the front. So I really don't use these manual controls at all.
Now, one thing I'm a big fan of when it comes to all Fuji cameras, I think, or at least all current ones that I've experienced, the front button, or the front wheel. So the wheel that you can't see that's on the front that is controlling, usually it's either f-stop or maybe you've set it to something else. The Fuji ones, when you press them down, they're also a push button. If you hold it down, you can reassign the functionality. If you just hit it, it cycles between the options available, and I think they come default as f-stop and ISO. So I'm not really changing my aperture a whole lot during a wedding day. I'm pretty much locked to wide open, or in this case, I'm physically locked to wide open. But other camera systems, I'll have my f-stop set to that front button all the time, whereas Fuji, when you hit it, it becomes ISO, and I find ISO a lot more useful. And that's how I'm controlling it all day rather than with the dial. Now I'll show you a quick little screen record of when you're trying to do both photography. So I'm taking a lot of pictures here and then I want to be switching to video. And other systems right now I could be recording video, but with this camera specifically, it does take a minute. So you can see on the bottom there how the little video camera is grayed out and it's available now. So now I can switch to video, but it did take me a while, probably like 10, 15, 20 seconds, cut some of it out there. And for hybrid coverage, when I've experienced a slower camera, I usually invert my process where I'll do the video clips first because they're less taxing on the buffer and just less data overall, and then switch to photography. But I am typically hired as a photographer first, so in my mind, this is the incorrect process. But if you are just doing photography, this does not matter to you at all. When it comes to APS-C crop cameras, which is what this X100VI is, versus full frame, if you are an absolute depth of field junkie, you're probably gonna want to go full frame. With Fuji lenses, so you do have, at least outside of this camera here, you do have the 50 f1.0, which is really nice, but when you're on crop, the depth of field doesn't really feel exactly like a 1.0. I've kind of seen online, and in my mind at least, the f-stop, well, it allows the amount of light in, so this is an f2 lens, it allows f2 of light transmission. The overall look of the depth of field is maybe a little bit closer to 1.5 times f2. So something more like f2.8 lens is kind of the look that you get in terms of depth of field when you're photographing people. I don't know if that's an exact science, but it definitely feels a little bit more of everything is in focus than an f2 lens on a full frame camera would be. That is, I guess, an aesthetic choice, and if you're happy with what these images look like, then be happy with it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I personally will always gravitate, I think, towards using a full frame camera. I don't really go for I'm going to do a video in the future here on the GFX and the 100S2, and I don't really see a massive benefit for the additional weight and the additional cost. I do wish that Fujifilm would put a camera into the full frame space. I know that maybe that's outside of their marketing, that they're focused on small form factors and all their lenses have been designed for APS-C format or to medium format as well. But I wish that there was something kind of in that middle space for me, because I feel like that's where I am the happiest, that I am okay to take a little additional weight because I'm out there doing work all day and it's fine. But as someone that shoots lenses wide open pretty much all day, both as an aesthetic choice as well as a creative and sometimes necessary choice, I just don't get the same look that I've grown accustomed to over these many years. Although a lot of those years I was shooting DSLR and the look was kind of from most of my photos being slightly out of focus a lot of the time. Oh yeah, listen to that background track. In a scene like this, the built-in film simulation blew me away. This looked way better in my camera than it did in real life. It's a nice scene in real life, but it looked significantly better. And I'll show a straight out of camera versus edit in a moment here, but it's hard because some of the photos would be great to deliver as JPEGs, but to mix those in and change the colors just specifically for a scene kind of makes the consistency of your overall gallery a little less consistent. And it might not be advised. Maybe if you're doing previews or you're posting something to a carousel to Instagram, maybe it's reasonable, but overall in the gallery, I like to stick to one single preset. Again, this is all my TJM 2024 preset that you're seeing, and I feel like it just keeps it a little bit more consistent. Also, I had this. I haven't even shown this yet. Look at these, I'm very happy with these images. Oh wait, Fuji does have a full frame camera. It's this one right here, the single-use disposable. Fuji also made a few really incredible point-and-shoot cameras. The Class E or the Class S is my favorite, and I use it a lot, but mine is broken now, which is sad.
Thank you guys for your help. That was very chaotic. That is gorgeous. Oh, the shade. Whew, that feels nice. Especially in a three-piece suit. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. And look at each other.
So our photo session is happening in the middle of the hot sun day, and you obviously just want to get your couples into good light, regardless of what camera you're using. if you're photographing in bad light, it's just not going to look good. So good camera can't save bad light. And what we do in those cases is we just find shady spots that are good enough backgrounds. Sometimes you can't use the exact scene that you want to use because it's too sunny or there's just too much dynamic range or the lighting is just going to be bad on the couple or the people you're photographing. But as soon as you get into light like this, everybody looks great. This is my favorite photo from the day, I think. I don't know why. I just like it a lot. It's a weird composition. That one, I like the first one better. I like it straight at a camera better too. But again, I can't mix all of those in when there's a few that I prefer straight at a camera, but then there's a lot that I don't prefer straight at a camera. I really actually like this camera during cocktail hour. Cocktails, I'm kind of either a mix of 35 or 85, depending on the energy of the environment. If it is a fun environment, everybody here is having a nice time. If this is the case, 35 usually displays that energy a little bit better. But if it's maybe a more low-key vibe and also maybe more spread out as well, the more compact everything is, the more comfortable I feel, and the more I feel that 35 is the correct choice. And you can also do things like this. My struggle when I'm on an 85 is that I am getting lots of great candidates, but then as soon as a group of people are like, oh, can we have a photo together? I'm like, okay, I have to go really, really far away and there's 10 of you. I'm gonna have to change the lens or if I have a second camera on me. So maybe this is, if you are thinking about bringing this camera to a wedding, maybe this becomes your second camera, your wide body. That's probably how I would use this. I also thought that it was going to be an incredible camera for doing hybrid photo video, but it's kind of proven that it isn't. I'll also have to investigate this further, but in terms of the IBIS, so the IBIS is incredible in video when you're horizontal, but for whatever reason, when I was shooting just 1080, 60 frames per second, and I was in vertical mode, it didn't seem nearly as good for some reason. So I don't know if that's technically correct or what the deal is, but I'll investigate a little bit more on that. And the reason I'm not shooting 4K 60p is because it comes with a crop on this camera. Now, autofocus in a scene like this where there's clearly one subject that you're trying to focus on, I found it a lot easier to use. And I'm pretty certain there's some sort of algorithm in there that is very quick to identify subjects when those subjects are clearly the ones that you want to be focused on. The struggle comes in if it's a very slow moving, like even a scene like this with a very slow moving subject. The autofocus was bouncing around a little bit. It did figure it out. It got it. I was using face and eye on this. Maybe the sunglasses kind of tripped it out a bit, but as soon as a shot like that appeared to the camera, it knew exactly what to do. All right, my thoughts, my conclusions on using the X100VI for wedding photography. It works well as a second camera. It does not work so well as a hybrid photo video camera. If it was a dedicated video camera, I feel like it works well. So if you're interested, maybe adding a small, maybe vertical highlight Instagram style video to your packages, or you just want to do them for fun, and this camera is on your side all day, I feel like it's a good tool for that. And then also having it as kind of that wider lens, so that if you have that second wider lens on you all the time, if you're maybe a 50 or an 85 shooter as a main lens, this would come in as a great secondary body throughout the day. So maybe that aligns with the thoughts you had coming in, if that's the place that you think this camera is going to be for your wedding coverage. I think you're accurate with that. When it comes to using it as a main camera, I don't think it would be my first recommendation. I think that Fuji has created a lot of other great cameras like the X-T5, and that would probably be my recommendation, or the H2S, maybe if you're a little bit more video focused. But as a full package, this camera, not only for weddings, but also for travel and for your personal camera, I think that this is a good buy if you are able to find one. Because right now, the clip that Tyler pulled said that B&H was expecting these cameras to be shipped for quote pre-order next year in January 31st. So that's a bit crazy. If you can find one before then, awesome. Also, to do a brief comparison of the X100V, which is the old one that you couldn't really find ever, versus the X100VI. The reasoning that I go with the 6 is because of the IBIS for video. If you are not a video person, you're not interested in doing video at all, there's probably no reason to go with the 6. Maybe for the enhanced autofocus, or if you really just want the bonus megapixels, those might be reasons. But if you can find an X100V that's a little bit, well, one that you're actually able to purchase, that would probably be my suggestion if you are just into photography. And again, that kind of scales outside of weddings and to everything that you could probably do with this camera. For my real honest, the way that I'm going to use this camera, it is unlikely it will find its way to another wedding, but it is going to be in heavy use for my travel, both in photography and also in video, because it is a very nice piece to use for that. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them down below and I will get back to you. Again, all the presets you're seeing are available. If you're on the member site, you're able to just get them all right now. Or even if you bought the complete preset collection last year, you should be able to log in and get access to the new presets. And if you can't, let me know and I'll make it happen for you if you did get that complete collection. And we'll never know how the X100VI does for dancing photos with flash, because we're on our way out and it's sunset. Now it's your job. You go and you figure out if it works for dancing. Goodbye.